Well, hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. We are so glad that you've spent some time with us today to talk about a topic and a new feature that we are extremely excited about. We've been working on for a while here at Wiiisdom to deliver this out into the market. And this is dashboard certification for your Tableau dashboards using a brand new capability we just released in Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, as well as a new Tableau dashboard extension. Just briefly introduce myself, and then I will allow my wonderful colleague Sagar to introduce himself as well. But my name is Dustin Shimmick, and I'm a product manager here at Wiiisdom, and worked on this new capability along with our engineering team. Huge round of applause to them for the amazing work that they did on this to deliver this. But before I came to Wiiisdom, I actually worked in roles similar to probably what many of you are in right now. I actually was most recently director of analytics at a company in my area here called Masterlock, and worked on all kinds of Tableau dashboards, and encountered a lot of the same challenges that you probably have that we are working towards solving here at Wiiisdom in terms of testing and automating testing around dashboards and building trust at scale, which we'll talk a little bit more about as we get into the webinar here. But Sagar, I'll turn it over to you so you can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Dustin. Hello, everyone. My name is Sagar Kapoor. I'm a product marketing manager at Wiiisdom. And before joining Wiiisdom, I was with Tableau as a customer success manager. So, everyone in the data fam, thank you for all your inspiration and working for the community. Thank you for that. Dustin, over to you.
Awesome. Yeah, so great to be joined by Sagar, very storied member of the Tableau community. So, excuse me, an honor always to be presenting with you. To those that are tuning in, definitely be sure to submit the questions that you have in the chat as we're going. We'd be glad to answer as many questions as we can. And then also know that we will send to all participants a copy of this recording of this presentation from today. And then also we do make these available on our YouTube channel. So if you check out Wiiisdom, it's Wiiisdom with 3 eyes. You can see our name down at the bottom of this slide. Check out our YouTube channel. We do post our content there as well. There's also tons of other good resources on our Wiiisdom YouTube page if you have interest in what we are presenting here today. So please, again, introduce yourself in the chat, ask questions. We love to see who's here, where you're coming from. It does really help us as presenters. And so go ahead and please introduce yourself in the chat. What we're going to talk about today is really 3 main things. So we're going to talk about why did we create this dashboard certification capability, kind of what was the background behind it, and what is it that we're looking to solve with it. And then talk about this concept of trust you can see. So we all have had, users asking us, hey, is this data up to date? Is this dashboard up to date? We're going to show you how you can instill that trust automatically at scale across all your views, all your users. No more need to answer those questions on a one-off basis. And then we'll walk you through a little bit of kind of the basics of how this works and comes together. I will turn it over, Sagar, I'll point down here underneath me, to you.
Thank you, Dustin. So let's start with why dashboard certification. And let me tell you a funny story about it. So my wife and I had an argument about something which she was upset. And as usual, you can understand it was always my fault over here. So what I did, I said, let's go ahead and cheer her up. And as an idea, I said, let's buy her favorite yogurt. So after searching everywhere in the aisle, I was able to find her favorite yogurt. And Dustin, if you can highlight it over here. And there was it. That is something which my wife just loves it. So I took that yogurt at home and give it to her as a surprise, saying that, sorry, we had a fight, and this is something which I have brought for you. But when she opened it, and it was gross, it was rotten. And you can understand over here what my wife has been thinking, right? She will never trust me again for buying something like that. And my reputation was at stake. What I was missing over here, and that is something I went back to check the expiry date of this product. And there was no expiry date. And that I was confused about it. Like I got this yogurt, but there was no expiry date. How come that can be over here? And you can understand uh, the yogurt is a perishable product, and sure, people test it during the production process, but doesn't mean it lasts forever. The same goes with your BI content. And and Dustin, if you go to the next slide,
Yeah. I was just gonna say, was it? Can I just ask one question? Were those
yeah.
worms? That I mean, it almost looked like there was worms in that. I
You can see my swollen face over here, right?
yeah,
So
right. I
we
mean,
will
that's
talk about that.
it's painful. I can't I can't imagine giving that to your wife.
Yeah, and that was not a best idea to go and buy a yogurt over here. But the point is that your BI content is also a perishable product. And you can see an example of dashboard over here. Just imagine I am an executive and I'm going ahead and using this dashboard. I'm not sure if I should go ahead and consume this dashboard. Is the data validated over here? Are the numbers correct? Is everything working in this dashboard? I'm not sure about it. And thanks to the community, we know the hack. And if you go to the next slide, you can, yes, go ahead and paste at the bottom saying last refresh date, it was there. But this is just a hack. It is not a process which goes ahead and validates your data and based on that gives you something about it. So there has to be a better process. But what happens once you go ahead and put messages like these? You will get, and if you go to the next slide, messages from your teams who will ask you if this particular dashboard is something I should consume. I'm sure you can go ahead and answer it to one or two teams. But what happens? Everyone in the organization started reaching out to you and asking the same question. Is this dashboard safe to consume? Just think about it. What happens to that business user and how much time they took for adopting those dashboards? Dustin, there has to be a better process for certifying the dashboards.
Yeah, absolutely. There is a better way, and this is exactly what we have solved for. Is we want to take all these messages, all these pings away from you, all these phone calls away from you. If you think about it, you could have hundreds or thousands of dashboards. You could have hundreds and thousands of users, and that's a lot of combinations in terms of these types of questions that can be asked about that content that's out there. I'm curious for folks that are listening, have you gotten messages like this? Have you gotten phone calls from folks that say, hey, is this up to date? Is it up to date? Or is this accurate? Did you refresh this? When was this last updated? Right. You go back to Cigar's point about in the lower right corner there. It's kind of small, right? Don't know if you could see it, but the last refresh date, I think we've all kind of used this hack method, right, to put that on dashboards. Again, it's one small thing you can do, but it's really hard to address questions like this at scale with hacky methods like that. The other thing is when you get questions like this, I don't know if it's the same for you, Cigar, but I find that when I get a call like you've got up here from a finance leader, I've got an urgent meeting, and I don't know if I can trust this dashboard, and I don't know if it's accurate, and God forbid if there actually is an issue. At that point, it's almost too late, isn't it?
Uh, uh, you can multiply this number of dashboards into a day over here. These many messages I get from executives. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So there is a better way. There is a better way. And is Cigar asking that question? Absolutely. So that's what we're delivering today. And this is actually available for everyone to go check out, regardless actually of whether you're a Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau user or not. We'll talk about that a little at the end. So definitely stay tuned for how you can get this because it is available right now for anyone. Capabilities are a little bit different. We'll talk about that in a second. But trust you can see. Imagine a world, where you don't have to field all of those phone calls. You don't have to answer all those chats. Users can have in front of them an actual confirmation, a visual confirmation that what they're looking at has been tested and certified. And we're going to talk a little bit about the certification side right now and kind of what this looks like practically in front of users. But then we'll also talk a little bit about how this can be combined with automated testing. So it's really the combination of the two things, the power of creating automated tests to check for certain things, data accuracy, user experience, validating those things, and then putting that certification in front of users. Kind of a 1 + 1 = 3 effect in terms of the power that has to save you time and build trust at scale with your Tableau content. So Sagar, as you take a look at this, if you were to have, we'll show you what this actually looks like, but if you were to have a stamp that showed that your dashboard is certified, and imagine putting that on all of your critical dashboards that are out there for all your users to see, is that something that would have cut down on some of those questions that were coming in? I mean, was that a real problem for you?
It was a real problem for me, and I'm sure I would have gone ahead and not missed my lunches and evening tea in my office. So yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And the other thing too is, as I open up, I'm going to actually open up this extension. We have a drum roll going. I don't know if someone can play the drums in the background here, but what it actually looks like, I've put it into a dashboard. I'm on Tableau Cloud right now, and I've put this extension object on this dashboard. And what we have here is this automated display of whether the dashboard is certified or not. And you can see we have that timestamp of when it was certified. So no more manually, creating that timestamp that's on your dashboard like you showed earlier. And then we can also include a message along with it to your users. And I'll dive into a little bit more of the configuration behind it. But I just wanted to put up here to have you think about for a second, take a step back and think about the power of letting your users know that a dashboard has passed rigorous testing and is certified. And then when it was last certified, what would that look like in terms of the amount of time, you would get back in your day from answering questions related to trust? Now, on the flip side of things, remember too, that if tests fail and the dashboard is decertified, you're going to see that here as well. And I think that's, pretty powerful, if not equally as powerful, because you think about the risk that you're avoiding with your organization, where if a user is looking at a dashboard and God forbid it did, not pass accuracy tests and user experience tests, whatever, and you didn't want to have your users acting on it as a result, there's some serious risk of losses that you can avoid there by those users not making data-driven decisions on a dashboard that failed some of the tests that you have on it. So it's just as much about certification as it is decertification, because now you've got an automated process in place where your users are not going to act on bad data or bad dashboards. And so there's a question here from LinkedIn user. Sorry, I can't see who this is, but the question is, does certification mean only test success? And so what I'm going to show you in just a second here, we'll hold on to that question. I'm going to show you how this works and how the certification status actually gets established on a dashboard. But it is based upon testing of your dashboards. Okay, and that's for data accuracy, for user experience, things like filter values being present, things like critical data being present, columns being present, data meeting certain rules, things like this. So absolutely, it is based on testing. And we'll get into a little bit of what that looks like in just a moment. Okay. All right. So we talked about the certification status, the timestamp, the message that you can configure. Let's talk a little bit about how this works, should we? All right. So let's switch back to my slides here and just briefly walk through kind of what I'm going to show you next. So what we can do with Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau is actually create tests with absolutely no code. And so I'm going to show you, I'm going to duck out of this slide in just a moment. We don't like to show too many slides during these. We want to keep them interactive. But what you can do with these no-code tests is you can actually automate testing around your dashboard. So if you're not familiar with Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, I'll show you what that looks like in just a moment. And then what's going to happen next is you can actually enable this dashboard certification for those tests that you set up. So, it is optional to use this feature. It's not required if you're using testing in Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau. So I'll show you how you can enable dashboard certification, this new capability, and then also show you how you can configure the dashboard extension that I was just had up on my screen. Okay. We'll go back to that in a moment. So if I go back into this dashboard that we were looking at, just to kind of set the stage here. for what we can do with automated testing around it. You've got a bunch of different stuff going on here. For one, you've got filters. I don't know, Cigar, have you ever had an issue with a filter where there's some values that, maybe you were expecting to see that didn't appear there?
For sure. It happened with one of our executive dashboard.
Yeah. And that always stinks, right? Because, it's always something that you hear after the fact from users, right? Someone might pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I usually see this category in here, but it's not there. Or surprise, surprise, there's a fourth category in here that slipped in, right? And Dustin or Sagar, what the heck is that, right? I've had this happen to me numerous times. And there could be a variety of reasons for that, right?
And just to add, I have always trusted my gut saying that it should be right. I have checked it the last week. I have checked it yesterday. It should be right. So I don't go ahead and check it proactively and just believe on my gut.
Yeah, for sure. And that's an interesting point, right? Because it might work for a dashboard or two, right? But then when you and when you have a small number of users, but as you get hundreds or thousands of dashboards, even dozens out there, and have dozens, hundreds, thousands of users, this becomes a bigger deal, right? The trusting your gut that things are good, we know how that's worked out, right? After years of doing this, we know, having gone through all the calls and the questions that come back, that doesn't always work, right? So there's things like filters, right? And filter values. There's actions in dashboards, right? You click on certain states in a map, you expect things to happen, right? There are, tables with data. There's charts with measures, calling out specific dollar figures, right? Sometimes you might have a value slip in here that's, let's say it's an unassigned product category. Here I'm looking at a Pareto of sales by product type, and gosh, sometimes those unassigned sales are big numbers for some reason because something happened, right? And then all of a sudden that's popping to the top of your chart, right? So all kinds of things can happen with the functionality as well as the accuracy of the data points that are in the dashboard. So again, this is kind of for those, a 101 for those that aren't familiar with what Wiiisdom does, but what Wiiisdom does is actually automate testing to ensure that all of these things are working properly. And so I'm going to open up our tool just really briefly. This is our Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau desktop application. And what you can do is just set up tests, for some of those functional elements of your dashboards, make sure they're working correctly, making sure that you can set filters to certain values that you expect, make sure that you can select marks and that actions are working correctly. Do data validation testing, make sure your data is accurate. And you get reports back on these things, right? So for all of the tests that you configure, you get reports back on what's working, what's not. And you can schedule these. See the little schedule button that we have here. You can schedule these to run on whatever cadence you want. So let's say you want to set up a test to check for certain filter values, check for the accuracy of data that's loaded in the dashboard, and run it every day at 6 a.m., whatever makes the most sense to you. If your data refreshes, your dashboards update at 5:30 a.m., maybe you run these at 6 a.m. every day. And then what'll happen is if there's a failure, you can set up to get notifications that there's a failure of these things. In this case, I'm looking at a test where there was a violation of some rules that we had around the sales measures that should be appearing in that dashboard. So there was something that failed regarding some of the sales figures that were in here. We needed to investigate that. And so you see that in our tool here, and you can get notified on that. And then in this case, actually, if you had enabled dashboard certification, your dashboard actually would get a decertification message on it. And the cool thing is that you can, when you get into the office, if you have these set up running at 6 a.m., you can investigate that right away. In the meantime, your users aren't making choices based on bad data, right? Because there's a decertification mark there, and you're solving that problem proactively. So totally different, Cigar, right, than this world that you and I have been used to, of just getting those calls, hoping things are right. Maybe, God forbid, bad decisions are being made. Let me show you what it looks like in terms of, I mentioned it was actually optional to enable this dashboard certification capability. So I'm going to go into one of those tests that I created, and you can see up here we have this new feature, post-process actions, and this new capability, dashboard certification. So what you can do is, if you want to enable dashboard certification, you can run all these tests without having dashboard certification enabled. You can get those notices that I mentioned sent to you without having this enabled. But if you want to go this step further and add dashboard certification to your dashboards, you're going to want to enable this for the test that you've created right here. And when you do that, what happens is you get an endpoint ID and secret that you're going to want to copy and put into the configuration of the extension itself. And let me go back to my dashboard that had the extension and show you how that works. Okay, so I'm back in my dashboard and I've got my extension up here. I'm just in Tableau Cloud right now. You could do the same thing in desktop. It's just literally an extension object that will show you how to get that you can add to your dashboard. You configure this. You can see that endpoint ID and secret right here. That's going to be where you're going to paste this information into. So you enabled your test, you set up your test to test for the things that are important to you. You can copy and paste the endpoint ID and secret right into the configuration screen. Okay. And this is if you want to use automated testing, right? If you don't, there is an option actually to manually configure this. So I mentioned the dashboard extension is out there for free for anyone to use. You can manually configure it using this tab right here. Okay. The only difference is this isn't going to be driven by automated testing. Instead, this is going to be something that you would need to configure on your own based upon manual tests that you performed on the dashboard. Okay. But if you're a Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau user, you can use this capability and get that certification status updated automatically. The certification message, this is important too, because you can actually note here, something about the testing process that drove the certification status, right? You can say who owns it. You could put your contact information there if you're the person that created the test. Anything that'll help the users, build up that trust automatically just by looking at it. Like, okay, gosh, now I know there was some rigorous testing that this passed, and here's the person I can reach out to contact if there's an issue. So that's the configuration. And what you're going to see is you're going to see, again, that status, which is going to be driven. Someone asked in the chat, is that driven by the automated testing in Wiiisdom? And yeah, if you configure this with this dynamic configuration, the status right here is going to be driven by whether the tests pass or fail. So if the test passed, it's going to be certified. And if it fails, it's going to be decertified. And you're going to see here when that last test was run. So the users always see when the last test was run. Going to highlight too, just the fact that I have this set up as a floating object. It doesn't have to be, this is customizable for you, right? When you have it as a floating object, you can position this anywhere you want on the dashboard. But the container also doesn't have to be floating, or the object doesn't have to be floating. I had positioned it just with the message hid so that it was a little bit more aesthetically pleasing. But, if you wanted to display the whole thing, you could. Right. And then the certification message is going to be right there. So it's kind of a quick 101 of what this looks like, how this works. It really is pretty simple and straightforward. Just, curious, Cigar, from your standpoint, like on decertification, if a decertification message would have appeared, in a user's dashboard, like, is that something that you would have wanted them to see? Like, is that something that would have helped you kind of sleep better at night, knowing that, gosh, like, my reputation isn't going to be harmed if a bad decision is acted on?
No, I think this is a serious thing, right? If you just think about it, your executives are going ahead and making decisions on your dashboard because they trust what you have created and your reputation is at stake. So if something is wrong in your dashboard, they should be notified at that time itself. Like, this is something you should not go ahead and make decision on. And the team is working on it just to fix it, and it should be up and running as soon as possible. So just think about, and this is an analogy I give everyone, like, just think about how much time it took you to onboard those business users on Tableau. And if they are not able to go ahead and get the trusted data or dashboard, they will go back to the Excels, which they love using it at any moment of time.
Yeah, for sure. And there's a question here where someone is asking, is it possible to paste different images depending on the type of issue or owner of the report? So I love this question. So thank you.
Great
This is
question.
a
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a really great suggestion. This is one that we've talked about ourselves as well. And so what I would say to that is we just released this extension version 1 for the first time, but at Wiiisdom, we do quarterly releases on all of our products, and we're constantly looking to get feedback. That's part of the reason why we do webinars like this. And we iterate every quarter, so keep that in mind. And please send us I would recommend downloading the extension, giving it a try, and then reaching out to myself, to Sagar. Hey, let us know what you think about it. Let us know that would be important to you. We absolutely use our customer feedback to shape our roadmap here at Wiiisdom. So thank you for that. Definitely something that I can see and that we've talked about.
For sure. I think we are a customer obsessed company. I have noted down that feedback, and this is something we will work on it. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely echo those same sentiments. I did want to also make you aware, since it's going to be mostly Tableau folks joining this webinar. If you go to Tableau Public, I'm sure many of you are familiar with this site, Tableau Public. We have a page. We actually have Wiiisdom's page. I'll click on it right here. We've got one dashboard out there. That's one that we've worked hard on to make available for free to everyone. And whether you're using Wiiisdom Ops or not, it's worth taking a look at it, because it does give you a really good feel for kind of, take a pulse point and what are the kinds of things that you can test for using automated testing, and then kind of what would, an admin level view look like, monitoring all those things that you can run automated tests on. And so the reason I bring this up in our dashboard certification release webinar is that we've added to this dashboard actually a view on decertification events. So we mentioned how important it is for users to know if a dashboard has been decertified, just like it's important for them to know if it's been certified, right? And in this kind of admin level dashboard that you could use with Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, you can actually see most recently what decertification events took place. And I'll kind of sprinkle in the fact that you can see a split here between dashboards and data sources. We also do automate data source certification using Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau. So that's something that we already had in Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, the ability to automatically certify data source after a test passes, or decertify it if it fails. But now in this latest release of Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, we're giving the ability to certify at the dashboard level, of course. And again, this administrative level view now shows kind of when those latest decertification events were. So if you imagine looking at this view every day, you're going to see, again, just in another place here, popping to the top, the fact that a dashboard was decertified. Click into it and see what was going on. There's a bunch of other stuff in this dashboard that will kind of capture. So what we do is just to walk you through a quick 101 on how this works is, if you're using Wiiisdom Ops or Tableau for automated testing, the data on those tests actually can get captured in a Postgres database if you use our Postgres integration. And then what you can do is use that data to connect to a dashboard, just like this one that I have right up here. You could use my dashboard I've put out there for free if you want to download the template, or you could create your own, or you could modify mine. But it's just an idea of kind of how you can use automated testing data to just keep an eye on everything that's going on. Are there failures in my dashboards? What's failing? Is it a filter? Is it the data? For example, I can click on a previous day here where I see a failure, and I can see, okay, this dashboard had a failure, and gosh, it looks like it was a filter that had an issue. And now I'm going to click into this dashboard and see what's going on with that filter, so I can proactively address these issues before they become a bigger problem. Oh, and guess what? For this one, look what happened. We automatically decertified the dashboard as well as the data source behind it, so that, God forbid, people weren't taking actions on this or building new content on the data source if there was an issue that had to be investigated, say a value that was expected and that filter was gone, or a new one added, something like that. So I did want to show that again. I'm going to put this link in the chat right now. but you can head out to Tableau Public and just look at Wiiisdom's page if you want to get a feel for what this looks like. At this point, I'm going to go back to, I appreciate this comment from, again, LinkedIn user needs an option to add a custom field like ETL load date time. Thank you. Keep any suggestions that you have coming. We always appreciate feedback from everyone. So thank you. And again, sorry that we can't see some of the folks' names. I think it's a setting there. But Sagar, I'm going to go back to my presentation and turn it back to you here to kind of bring us home.
Thank you, Dustin. And just think about it the same way in case of a yogurt analogy, which I talked about it in terms of why dashboard certification. Uh, the expiry date is something which helps us to understand uh, when we can go ahead and consume that particular yogurt over there in this case. And something goes similar with your dashboard also. It should have a certification mark it should be certified in terms of, yes, this is a dashboard and I can go ahead and make decisions on it. And if you go to the next slide, Dustin, using Wisdom Ops for Tableau now, you can go ahead and put that certification mark over here. Taking the example of the same dashboard which we talked about, and earlier what I had done, I have just gone ahead and used a worksheet in Tableau and put it right across my dashboard just to tell it the data was refreshed in that particular day. But now what I am doing using Wisdom Ops for Tableau, I have gone ahead and created my series of tasks in which I'm testing if my filters are working or not. I'm also going ahead and validating the data which I'm getting over here just to make sure the quality of the data and the UI of the dashboard, everything is working. And then only I can certify my dashboard. And you can see over here, something was wrong in this dashboard. That's the reason on the right hand side corner, you can see that this dashboard is not certified. So imagine an executive who comes to this dashboard, he or she can literally go ahead and see that this dashboard, something is wrong. And before executive sees it, we will get notified in terms of an email, Slack, or Teams that something is wrong in my dashboard. Make sure you're able to fix it. So, proactively, you are going ahead and working on it just to make sure you're increasing trust as well as reducing risk exposure for your data and analytics decision making.
Absolutely. And before I drop, I'm going to drop the link into the chat here and share it with you at the end in terms of how you can actually go out and get the new extension for free. Again, whether you're using Wiiisdom Ops or not, it's available to everyone to get. But, this quote actually really does hit home to me, I've had an 11-year career in the analytics world and kind of in progressive roles. And this was something that was kind of always in the back of my mind. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. I haven't been in the field for 20 years, but probably between Sagar and I, we probably have combined over 20 years in the field. Me personally, 11 or 12. But, especially at the end of the year, right, where you're getting close to a time where there's going to be a lot of changes taking place in your data sets, in your data sources. There's going to be changes to calculations maybe in dashboards. There's going to be data that might appear differently on January 1st than it did on December 31st. This was always something I was thinking about, not only throughout the year, but also especially at the end. Sometimes I would be coming into the office to kind of check on all of those hundreds of dashboards out there to make sure they were ready when the new year came. And so I think this is a statement to keep in mind just as we're getting closer to the end of the year. Is everything in order? Is that reputation that you spent all of these, years, decades building at risk because of, some relatively minor, but unfortunately super impactful issue that might happen? I think would encourage you to not move away from trusting your gut and putting something that's relatively simple and cost effective in place to do, automated testing, bring that peace of mind to you and your users and reduce the risk that you have to your company through kind of this ecosystem like what we've described today. So if this is something that you have any interest in, definitely would recommend that you download the extension and just give it a try. take a look at it, see what you think, send us feedback. You can always reach out to Cigar or I directly with what you think of it. We've got the website right here. I'm going to drop it into the chat as well. Here's actually the page where you can go directly to and just click on download the extension. And then all you really have to do is add it as an extension object to your dashboard. I also have, I mentioned at the beginning of the session, a tutorial video on Wiiisdom's YouTube page. If you'd like to take a look at a quick YouTube tutorial for how to get this set up, there's a free one there to take a look at as well. But whether you're a Wiiisdom Ops user or not, I'd recommend taking a look at this and just giving it a try, and then having a think about what would automated testing look like for you and your organization. And then what would that mean in terms of the amount of time you'd get back as a result of putting that in place? And also, probably more importantly, in terms of the trust it would build in your user base and the mitigation of, the risks from not putting this in place. All right. Very cool. A nice comment here again. Thank you to everyone that joined. Yes, we're glad to do this for you. I'm just taking a look at this comment here. I won't read through it, but thanks everyone for joining. Do reach out to us if you have questions. And Cigar, any closing words from you?
I think definitely just go ahead and download the certification and check it out. I think being a Tableau user, we want you to test out these things. So just download the extension, test it out in your important dashboards in your organizations. And if you're looking for a more automated way, just send us a message, and happy to help you and how we can streamline your governance as well as automated testing in your organization.
Yep,
Yeah.
for sure. And we'll close with this, the first part of this comment I pulled up, because I think this is a nice closing point. In this person's next role, the first change they would make is to using Wiiisdom Ops for Tableau, to do something like this. And I swear we did not plant this. This is not someone from Wiiisdom doing this. I would say, even why wait, right? Take a look at, get in touch with us, and we'd be glad to help you just talk through what this would look like and get started with it. So, but I love it. I think the end of the year is a great time to be thinking about this. So thank you everyone for your time, and reach out to Cigar and I, and let us know what you think of this. Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.